At 3:14 a.m., I discovered that the man I thought I was, the pillar of this family, was actually a prisoner inside a body that had been screaming for help for 6 months. I tried to stand up to get a glass of water, just like I'd done 1,000 times before. But this time, when I swung my feet over the side of the bed, my legs didn't just hurt. They simply weren't there anymore. I hit the floor with a thud that echoed through the silent house, a sound that signaled the end of my life as I knew it. Before that night, I was a man of the old school. 64 years old, a retired contractor who had spent 4 decades moving mountains of timber and concrete. My pride wasn't in my bank account. It was in the fact that I'd never missed a day of work, and I'd never complained about a headache. I had this beautiful, dangerous illusion of what my golden years would look like. I wanted to be the grandfather who takes the kids hiking, the one who handles the heavy lifting during moves, the man who proves to everyone that he still has it. I wanted to be the hero of the family, not a burden. But that desire to be strong became my greatest weakness. It started with a whisper, what I call the ghost tingle. Every evening while watching the news, I'd feel this strange, painless sensation in my left calf. It wasn't a cramp. It wasn't a sharp sting. It was just a heavy, buzzing silence. I laughed it off. I told my wife it was just restless legs from a long life of hard work. I told myself that getting older meant things just stop working perfectly. And that was the trap. I chose to believe a lie because the truth felt like a surrender. Instead of seeing a specialist, I went to the drugstore. I spent hundreds of dollars on specialized heating pads and OTC creams to mask that nocturnal heaviness. Every time I rubbed that cream into my skin, I was effectively putting a gag on my body's only alarm system. I was silencing the messenger while the house was already on fire. I thought I was being brave by pushing through. I didn't realize that my strength was actually the ultimate form of selfishness. I was trading my future mobility for a few months of appearing tough, and the price of that vanity was about to become higher than I ever imagined. I spent hours at the kitchen table after everyone else had gone to bed, staring at my phone with a specialist's number pulled up on the screen. It was a silent battle between the man I was and the man I was becoming. My intuition was screaming. It was telling me that this ghost tingle wasn't a badge of honor from 40 years of hard labor. It was a white flag from my nervous system. But then I'd look at my hands, still thick and calloused, and I'd feel a wave of absolute shame. How could I tell my wife that the pillar of the house was cracking? The reward for staying silent was keeping my dignity. The risk, I told myself, was just a little more discomfort. I convinced myself that seeing a doctor was a surrender, a one-way ticket to being the old man in the chair. I thought I was being brave, but I was actually just terrified of the truth. So I made my choice, my fatal, arrogant choice. I decided to walk it off. I started a grueling routine of walking 3 miles every single morning, pushing through the heaviness until my calves felt like they were filled with wet concrete. I remember standing in the pharmacy aisle, looking at a $15 tube of extra-strength numbing cream, and then back at my phone. In that moment, I chose the cream. I chose to buy into the lie that I could self-medicate my way out of biological collapse. That was my point of no return. I walked out of that store, went home, and spent the evening smiling through the pain at Sunday dinner, hiding a limp that was becoming impossible to ignore. I traded the chance for a cure for the temporary comfort of a facade. I didn't realize that by saving my family from the worry of my illness, I was actually sealing my fate to become their permanent burden. I had officially crossed the line where toughing it out becomes a suicide mission for your own independence. For the first few weeks, I felt like a king. I'd wake up, slather that numbing cream on my calves until they felt like rubber, and head out for my 3-mile walk. I remember the crisp smell of the morning air and the internal gloat. Take that, aging. You haven't caught me yet. Every step was a middle finger to the specialist number I'd deleted. I was validating my own lie, and God, it felt good. I'd come home with my chest out, telling my wife how loose and strong my legs felt. I wanted her to see the contractor, the provider, the man who simply doesn't break. But looking back, that honeymoon was actually a funeral procession I refused to hear. The cracks were everywhere, but my ego was a hell of a drug. At night, even under 3 heavy wool blankets, my feet felt like they were submerged in ice water. I'd tell myself it was just a drafty floor or poor circulation from working too hard. Then came the first lockup, waking up in the dead of night with a left leg that felt like a solid lead pipe. Did I call a doctor? No. I blamed the mattress. I went out and spent $2,000 on a new one the next day, trying to buy my way out of a biological collapse that was already written in my nerves. The most humiliating part was the Sunday dinners. I'd walk from the kitchen to the table, and my left foot would drag just a fraction of an inch, a tiny, rhythmic scuff on the hardwood. I'd see my daughter's eyes flicker toward my feet, and I'd immediately overcompensate, lifting my knee higher, smiling wider, cracking a joke about getting my miles in. I was a world-class actor in a tragedy where I was the only one who didn't know the ending. I thought I was winning the battle against time, but I was really just sharpening the blade that was about to cut my life in half. I know some of you watching this are feeling that same tightness tonight. You're sitting there, rubbing your leg, telling yourself it's just the weather, or your shoes, or a long day on your feet. You feel that temporary relief from the cream, and you think you've cheated the system. But let me ask you something, man to man. Are you staying silent because you're brave, or because you're absolutely terrified of what that specialist is going to tell you? Comment below. Tell me the lie you're telling your family tonight, because I've told them all, and look where it got me. Then came the Tuesday morning when the lie finally stopped working. I remember sitting on the edge of the tub, slathering on that extra-strength cream, waiting for that familiar cooling sensation. But it never came. My skin was cold to the touch, but the nerves underneath were screaming in a language I couldn't ignore anymore. I applied more. Then half the tube. Nothing. That was my first real taste of the bitter truth. You can't negotiate with a dying body. The rules of the game I'd played by for 60 years, work harder, ignore the pain, buy the best gear, they didn't apply here. This wasn't a project I could finish with over time. I looked down at my legs in the harsh bathroom light and, for the first time, I didn't see the legs of a contractor. I saw skin that was becoming shiny, hairless, and a strange mottled purple. It looked like something that didn't belong to a living man. The money was the next thing to go. I became a mark for every miracle cure on the internet. I spent thousands of dollars on copper-infused socks, vibrating platforms, and specialized vitamins that promised to restore circulation overnight. My bank account was bleeding out, and I was too proud to tell my wife why our savings were dipping. I was literally paying for the privilege of staying in denial. Every miracle I bought was just another brick in the wall I was building between myself and the truth. I realized then that I wasn't managing my health. I was losing control of my own gravity. The ghost tingle had evolved into a permanent heavy throb that felt like my calves were being crushed by the very mountains of concrete I used to move for a living. I wasn't the hero of the family anymore. I was a man trapped in a burning building, desperately trying to polish the furniture while the roof was caving in. The adventure of toughing it out was over, replaced by a cold, suffocating tension. I knew the floor was about to fall out from under me, but my ego still wouldn't let me reach for a phone. I was still betting my life on a miracle that I knew, deep down, wasn't coming. By the time the miracle cures failed, I didn't reach for a phone. I reached for a shovel to dig myself a deeper hole. My pride wasn't just a shield anymore. It was a wall I was building between myself and every person who actually cared about me. I started skipping the Saturday morning coffee with the guys at the diner. Why? Because my old friend Dave, a guy I'd worked sites with for 30 years, had the audacity to ask why I was walking like a man with glass in his boots. I didn't want his concern, and I certainly didn't want his pity. So I gave him my absence instead. I blocked his number and told myself he was just getting negative in his old age. I became a ghost in my own home, a master of the lame excuse. When my wife wanted to go for our usual evening walk, I'd tell her I'd already done my 3 miles, while she was at the store. It was a pathetic, disgusting lie. In reality, I'd spent that hour gripped in a chair, sweating through my shirt, waiting for the throbbing in my calves to subside just enough so I could stand up without crying out. I told her the house was too humid, or that I'd tweaked my back, moving a bag of mulch. Every lie felt like a brick on my chest, but it was easier than saying the words. I'm losing my legs, and I'm terrified. The isolation was a cold, suffocating choice. I'd sit in the dark of the garage for hours, staring at my tools, knowing I couldn't use them, but pretending to be organizing. I was bankrupt, emotionally, physically, and increasingly, financially, and I had nowhere to turn because I'd pushed everyone away who could see through the facade. I was the king of a crumbling kingdom, sitting on a throne of lies, while the ghost tingle turned into a permanent, icy silence. I thought I was protecting my dignity by being alone in my pain, but I was really just ensuring that when the floor finally fell out, there wouldn't be a single hand nearby to catch me. At 3:14 a.m., the universe finally called my bluff. I remember the exact temperature of the floor against my cheek. It was freezing, but my legs felt like they were submerged in boiling oil and ice at the same time. I tried to push myself up, but there was no up left in me. I was a 220-pound contractor, a man who had built skyscrapers and bridges, reduced to a heap of useless meat on a bedroom rug. The ghost tingle wasn't whispering anymore. It had finally finished its job. It had gone silent because my nerves were officially dead. The humiliation of that night is a stain I'll never be able to wash off. My wife, the woman I had promised to protect and provide for, had to drag me toward the door because I couldn't even crawl. I saw the terror in her eyes, but worse than that, I saw the realization. The man she leaned on was gone. I wasn't the pillar anymore. I was the wreckage. In the emergency room, the silence was deafening. The doctor didn't give me a tough guy handshake. He looked at my mottled, purple feet with a mix of pity and frustration that felt like a physical blow to my chest. When he showed me the MRI, I saw the map of my own arrogance. Those dark zones where blood used to flow were now just graveyards. If you had come in when the coldness started, he said, his voice flat and clinical. We had options. We had stents. We had bypasses. Now we're talking about management. We're talking about how to keep what's left. That was the moment the floor truly fell out. I had spent thousands of dollars on miracle creams and copper socks, buying myself a front row seat to my own dismantling. I had traded my independence, my retirement savings, and my dignity for a $15 tube of numbing gel. I looked in the hospital mirror and didn't recognize the old man staring back. I wasn't a hero for toughing it out. I was a coward who was too scared to face the truth. And now, my family was going to pay the price for my vanity for the rest of their lives. I was the architect of this ruin, and I had built my own prison, one ignored symptom at a time. I'm done. No more lies, no more, I'm fine, and no more hiding under the covers, hoping the morning will bring a miracle that I already know isn't coming. When I finally left that hospital, I didn't walk out like the man who built this house. I was wheeled out. And that was the most soul-crushing moment of my 64 years. I spent my entire life being the pillar everyone leaned on, the one who carried the weight, and now I'm the man who needs a ramp just to get through his own front door. I had to face the source of my ruin, and it wasn't just the ghost tingle or the dead nerves. It was the man in the mirror. I sat across from that specialist again, and this time I didn't try to negotiate. I didn't tell him I could walk it off or that I knew a better way because I'd seen it all before. I just sat there, gripped by a cold, hard clarity, looking at the scans of my own self-destruction and asking one simple, terrifying question. What's left? There is no victory here. There's no miracle comeback, where I'm hiking mountains with my grandkids by next summer. This is a war of inches now. Every single morning is a brutal confrontation with a body that I betrayed through my own arrogance. I spend my hours in physical therapy, sweating through my shirt, teeth clenched just to move my left foot 3 inches to the side. It's humiliating, it's exhausting, and the worst part? It's entirely my fault. I'm fighting now, not to be a hero, but just to regain a shred of the independence I threw away for a $15 tube of numbing cream. I'm back in my house, but it feels like a fortress I'm under siege in. The tools in my garage are gathering dust because I can't stand long enough to use a saw. My golden years aren't filled with travel or adventure. They're colored by the sterile gray of clinic walls and the tight, suffocating squeeze of compression socks. I'm telling you this because I need you to see the end of the road I took. I thought I was being a tough guy by staying silent. I thought I was protecting my family's peace of mind by hiding the pain. But all I really did was ensure that my wife has to spend her retirement being my nurse instead of my partner. My pride didn't save my dignity. It incinerated it. If you're listening to me right now and you feel that heavy, buzzing silence in your legs, look at me. Look at what's left of the pillar of the family. I'm not a warning of what might happen. I'm a preview of what will happen if you don't stop lying to yourself today. The real confrontation isn't with the disease. It's with the pride that's keeping you from picking up the phone before it's too late. I sit here on this porch now, watching the sun go down, and the only thing I feel is the crushing weight of everything I threw away. My golden years were supposed to be spent hiking with my grandkids and finishing the woodshop projects I'd planned for decades. Instead, my world has shrunk to the width of a wheelchair and the length of a plywood ramp I had to hire another man to build. That's the ultimate sting for a contractor like me, watching someone else do the work I should be doing, while I sit here, a prisoner in a body I betrayed. I look at those old work boots in the corner of the garage, and they look like relics from a civilization that died out. I thought I was being a hero by toughing it out. I thought I was protecting my family by staying silent about that ghost tingle in my calf. But look at me. I didn't save my dignity. I incinerated it. I traded my independence for a $15 tube of numbing cream and a few months of pretending I was still the pillar of this house. Now, I'm just a permanent weight on my wife's shoulders, watching her exhaust herself playing nurse because I was too arrogant to play patient. If you're watching this right now and you feel that heavy, buzzing silence in your legs, that ghost tingle that seems so harmless because it doesn't scream, I am imploring you. Look at my face. I am not a story. I am a preview. That sensation isn't restless legs or getting older. It's the sound of your life's blood being choked off. It's a condition called peripheral artery disease, the painless killer that waits until it's too late to introduce itself. My body didn't shout for help. It whispered, and I told it to be quiet. Please, learn from my ruin. Your body doesn't speak English. It speaks in sensations. When it whispers to you at night, don't ignore it. Don't reach for a heating pad or a miracle cure from a website. Reach for the phone. Call a vascular specialist tomorrow morning. Throw away the pride that's telling you to walk it off, because once your body stops whispering, it doesn't start shouting. It just stops talking to you altogether. Don't let your pride be the last thing standing when you can't. Stay alive. Stay mobile. Don't end up like me.